Why we set up? So we're a chapter of the Docomomo International, which is the kind of umbrella organization to which the chapter is affiliated. I will briefly pass the mic over to Uta and Hubert-Jan from Docomomo International to give a few words about this.
So thank you, Suha, and for this, let's say, beautiful and poetic, I think, introduction full of spirit on what was Docomomo's ambition. But I leave that to Hubert-Jan, who is one of the founders, to talk about the very early ambitions of Docomomo. And he has observed that over time. And I'm also happy he is with us today. And so let me rather talk about, I think, what Docomomo International might offer to you as a chapter. And I think it was wonderful, Suha, that you mentioned that you like to work in groups. And I guess it's not only in Sudan and that part of the world, but I can confirm that this is also a nicer and better way of working, and a more creative way and constructive way of working in teams. And I think this is also what Docomomo is all the time sharing. And I wanted to share this slide, which probably most of you could not attend, but this was the last Docomomo conference, actually this year in September, after a break of 2 years, where you, I think, can still see the spirit of groups coming together again and sharing ideas. But nevertheless, I think, as you mentioned, it is wonderful that in between that there is this opportunity to use Zoom and make these, I think, regional conferences or gatherings on a national level, regional level, however, or also international by internet. And I think this is really new to Docomomo to make use of it since Tokyo. We have also learned very quickly, like we all were used to, or were obliged to turn to that. And I think still it is a super valid method of doing so. But we are looking also forward of having our next conference, and I think I'm also allowed to share that. You may know that we have a call for proposals that was open until the 30th of November, and with that, let's say for our own surprise, we have received 3 proposals. I think this has not happened in the last 4 or 5 years, so we were really surprised. We knew, of course, about 1 or 2, but I must say I didn't really know about the 3rd proposal until very lately. So as you can see here, these were 3 very nice proposals, 1 from Brazil, 1 from the United Arab Emirates, and I think I saw that Fatima is also here from UAE. I saw her on the screen, and we received a proposal from Chile. And this week, early this week on Monday, we had an advisory board meeting, and it was decided to host the next conference in Chile in South America. So I guess, I hope this was not too let's say, frustrating for the other partners. All of them made very good, very nice, very profound proposals with different focuses. So I hope this is rather an encouragement also for other chapters to continue with that. And I really hope very much that in the future we also can host a international conference in the region, let's say, of North Africa, Middle East. I think this would be wonderful. And so your conference today also is a good start. So just to mention this, and I would rather like also put your attention, I know what Mohieldin will say, you have a lot of, you have huge ambitions, and that is fantastic. And I just want to say, what is our role as a Docomomo? So not only using Zoom for the conference, but also using better digital tools we are advancing, and we have brought the Docomomo journal online. As you may know, it is now part of an open journal system. We are still working with the platform, but at least we managed, you see, to get some screenshots out of the system. And for us, it's interesting to see how also attention of the audience is apparently increased after our monthly newsletters. So we have some top articles, and we can do some statistics, and we hope to use this tool much better in the future. But in particular, we would like to encourage you really to make use of the Docomomo journal and to submit articles. We aim also for a free, not just for special issues that are printed, but also to do open online issues in the future where you can present your themes and your topics. And hopefully we are very busy at the moment to post and ship the 2 journals of this year, which were now just produced and printed. So the 2 issues of the Docomomo International, which are accessible, or not just accessible, but which are sent in printed version to the international members. One is on modern plastic heritage, and for the reason of the terrible war in Ukraine and the attention that is given to that region, we also decided to make a special issue on the multiple modernities. As it was mentioned just in the introduction, it is a very big variety also of groups and people engaged in and with these multiple modernities in Ukraine. So it will also be online. I guess we will, before Christmas, probably next week, if everything works fine with our platform, you can also see the journals online at the docomomojournal.com. So really encouraging you to make use of it. We also started to put the input that is in the Docomomo virtual exhibition, which was set up by Anna Tostois and Lisbon in 2015, this database, which to visualize here, for example, part of those buildings in a better overview than it is visible in the database. So I think this might also be a nice way of highlighting again the past, and of course looking very much more into the future.
Let me start by complimenting Suha and yourselves and the whole Docomomo Sudan group, because we fully appreciate the difficult circumstances you're in. And that's why it's, we have tremendous respect for your efforts, and welcome into our organization, into our family, as we always call it. Because as you know, in 1990, we started with 13 countries. And basically, Wessel and I always said to each other, well, we'll survive for another 4 years or something, and then that will be the end of it. But every conference we grew, and now you are amongst, I think, 78 international working parties. So it is enormous. And that you are a member of this family now is fantastic. And that you open it with this conference, we are very, very proud of you. I just wanted to say that, of course, Docomomo is, we work to document and to conserve buildings and sites of the modern movement, but more important is to stimulate the idea of the modern movement, because we always say, obviously, it's very nice that all these, or most of these buildings are interesting aesthetically, but the fundamental idea is just to create a better world for all. That's the intention, that's the idea. And we always say Docomomo is mainly about the idea. Architects, architectural historians, researchers, everybody is in Docomomo working for that goal. For us, we've been let's say from this 3rd conference onwards, we began to realize that not only people in Europe and in South America were interested, but also in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia. And for us, it is very important that Africa becomes much stronger also in Docomomo. Two reasons. One is that Africa, obviously in the future, in say 10, 20 years time, is becoming one of the leading continents in the world. So it is important that we have you within our organization. And secondly, it is important because we can take advantage of you and you can take advantage of us. For Sudan, as in many countries, the heritage of your past is very important. In your case, you have a heritage of millennia. I mean, we're talking about a heritage of, say, 2,000 years. Yours is much longer. So tradition in your country is extremely important. And therefore, it's very nice that we see modernity and tradition coming together, and we can learn a lot how you're going to do that. This modernity is not only important for your feeling of heritage, for your memory, but also for the next generation, because the future architects should be, if possible, be inspired by what modernity tries to do. And that is what I said before, is trying to create a better world for all. And if you look at a lot of architecture which is happening at the moment, it is not so much for all, it's for the market. And that is, therefore, for your young generation, if you get the stimulants of the idea of the modern movement, that will be very beautiful. We sincerely hope that after this conference, there will be not only many more conferences in Sudan, but also that you're going to participate in our big network. I just, in the meantime, want to compliment Fatima for their efforts to get into the conference thing, because the international conferences brings us all together. So we hope to see at least some of you in Chile, hopefully many people from Africa and from Sudan. And we hope that you will participate not only in the conference, but in the dialogue we have in our open system at the moment, and that you will participate in one of the 6 specialist committees, international specialist committees we have on education, on register, on technology, on urbanism, on interior education. What else do we have? Publicity. So welcome, within the Docomomo group. We hope to see you a lot. We hope to speak to you a lot, and we hope to be inspired by you, and we hope that you will be inspired by what we are doing. Have a very, very good conference and enjoy this day. Thank you very much.
As you mentioned, Hubert-Jan, Sudan has a rich architectural history dating back several thousand years, and thankfully we find that is increasingly being respected, and is getting the awareness and attention that it deserves. But a lot of us, when establishing the chapter, felt that the extensive inventory of modern buildings are underappreciated, and they are increasingly at risk of demolition, disrepair, and insensitive alterations. And we've already seen a lot of that over the last few decades. So we wanted to document these buildings and raise awareness about them, as they are more appreciated and thereby more likely to be conserved. And we would like to actively conserve them, so through campaigning or through general awareness. So what have we been doing over the last year? One of the activities from the last year has been research. We submitted 7 documentation fiches. Some of them are shown here. The buildings were largely selected by what resources we had at the time. But the selection process also raised important questions as to what a modern building is in this context. And having a different history to where the modern movement has begun, inevitably means that for future discussions as we work. The All Saints Cathedral, now the Republican Palace Museum, seen here on the left, is a good example, and it will be discussed later by one of the speakers. We also studied Arak Hotel, which has been for for many years now. It was an interesting exercise because the research relied a lot on primary sources, journals, and that's what we're finding with a lot of the stretched well into the 80s, which is much later than what is normally regarded as perhaps modernism in the West. And also shown here is the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa by Abdelmunim Mustafa, an example of early homegrown modernism. This will also, his work will also be talked about later in the conference. Several buildings illustrate relationships with other countries. The Arab Bank was one example, and two more are the Friendship Hall and the National Assembly, shown here in the middle on the right, both of which will be hopefully discussed later also. Another thing we do is collaboration and public outreach. So we collaborated with the Sudan Architecture Forum and the Sudan Artists Fund to run a photography competition about modern built heritage. And sure enough, we had a diverse interpretation of what modernity is, with many entries focusing on breaks with the past or the use of new materials. The winning entry was actually of a colonial building, shown here in the middle. And the photo competition was one example of collaboration, and so is holding this conference, which will be an annual event, as mentioned. The aim from next year is to have more focused areas of discussion than today's, but the idea is to work with others and share knowledge. And what we want to do going forward is more public outreach. For example, we'd like to hold an exhibition of the photography competition. I'm sharing here a few more of the entries, again illustrating this diversity of interpretations. We would like to hold more lecture series and talks, including more in Arabic, so that we can reach a wider audience. And once possible, city walk, so that we can visit these buildings in the flesh. We want to do more research, obviously, to carry on with our library of information, and we want to look at buildings outside of Khartoum. It's something we struggle to find. So, we're obviously open to any contributions from outside the group, and we'd like to conserve the drawings themselves, not just the buildings, but we also look at original drawings, original documents, and they have historical value, obviously. Another thing I want to do is contextualize and categorize. The broad approach we are taking means that categorization becomes key. So shown here is a diagram we presented previously, which shows important historical events which have led to the Sudanese state at independence, and key architectural principles through which its architecture can be viewed. Of course, this has already been written about extensively, and we want to work with other academics in this respect. And then following on that, we would like to establish an archive, whether it's digital or physical, and run conservation campaigns. So today, this is the conference. The conference today reflects this breadth of thought and activity. We are welcoming academics, students, researchers, and practitioners to speak. Some will speak about history, individual architectural buildings, theory, international relations, legal implications, as well as the work of similar organizations. Please stay until the end to find out about the murder mystery.